All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
Well, I got a burr under my saddle.
We talk, you listen.
Somebody that's going to take an innocent life is not mentally insane?
You know them.
Time to nut up or shut up.
You love to hate them.
It's the Denton and Sasquatch Show.
Can I bring my AR-15 next time?
Sure.
Yes.
This place is half talk show, half weird daycare. I love it.
You can't handle the truth.
Hello and welcome once again to the Denton and Sasquatch Show, coming to you from both Alabama and California. My name is Sasquatch. I live here in California. His name is Denton. He lives in Alabama, and somehow, through the miracle of modern technology, we're talking to you and coming into your ears.
Yes, we are the masters at social distancing. So tell me something, Sass. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. What's been going on your side of the world?
Oh, you know what? Real quick, this is not going to be a COVID show. So anybody that's like, oh, I'm so tired of hearing about COVID, don't worry. I mean, we may mention it here and there, but all our stories, what we're talking about, nothing to do with COVID.
Oh, by the way, if you want to tell us that we're damn liars, you can contact us at dentonandsassshow@gmail.com, or you can go to prepperformance.net, where you can find us hanging out, posting our worthless opinions about survival, planting herbs, whatever, and some politics and religion. And, hey, feel free to join up. And if you do, please say, hey, I came to prepperformance.net because Denton and Sass said this is the place to be.
Exactly. And please tell us we're worthless.
Yeah, we like being worthless. And weak.
Well, you asked me how I'm doing, so I got a little story for you.
Excellent. We love story time.
Gather round, kids. It's story time. All right. So this weekend, before I tell the story, two things. So I've talked about it here before. I have goats. So remember that. Keep that in the back of your mind. I have goats.
I used to be married to an old goat. Anyway.
And also, I've recently bought a new house, and it's somewhat rural. I don't want to say it's like I don't live out in the middle of the boonies, but I live sort of on the edge of town. Like I look out my front door, I got a big mountain in front of me. So somewhat rural. Okay, so there you go. Remember those two things.
All right.
So we just put in new sod, and anybody that knows the sod, you got to water it. So I'm out watering it this weekend in the morning, and one of our neighbors comes up, and we hadn't met this.
Hey.
What?
If you have a crew of blondes putting down your sod, what's the most important thing you have to yell at them every 5 seconds?
Take more clothes off?
Green side up.
Oh.
Sorry.
Well, luckily I didn't have a bunch of blondes helping me out.
Okay.
So this neighbor comes up. I hadn't met this neighbor. She came over to introduce herself and say hi. And so, we're just chatting, and she's asking where I'm from, and she's telling me about the town I live in, even though I sort of know a little about it because Hot Nurse's lived here for a very long time. And so as we're sort of shooting the shit there, she says, hey, so did you guys hear the mountain lion the other night?
Ruh-roh.
And I went, no, I did not. And she's like, yeah, a couple nights ago, my husband and I heard it right outside our house. And I kind of thought, well, what does a mountain lion sound like to you? Because they do sort of do that. I think it's called a chortle or a chuttle or something like that, where they, sort of noise.
Sure.
So I'm thinking maybe that's what she heard, if she heard anything. Now, I've been out in, hiking in the bush and stuff, and I've heard a mountain lion in heat. And if you ever hear that, it's like one of the eeriest, weirdest sounds, because it's like a banshee screaming. So I don't think that's what she heard. But anyway, so I thought, no, I didn't hear it, and we chatted and left. I didn't think much of it. I thought, maybe she just... she doesn't know. I mean, we got coyotes around here and stuff, the usual stuff. Well, that night, I go to put the goats away, put them into their goat barn, tuck them in, make sure they're safe. And I got my flashlight, and I catch some eye shine in the corner of my yard, so I walk over there to see what it is. And this big old giant possum just sitting there. And it's a possum, so whatever. But I wanted to get a good look at him because he was pretty big. So I walked around the other side of this, because the goat closure has a chain link fence in it. I walk around the other side to get a look at him. And I notice on his back, he's got this huge gash in his back. Now, it's not fresh because there's not like blood spurting out of it or anything, but it's just, you can see the pink meat. So it's fairly fresh. And he doesn't walk away. He kind of looks like he's I don't know, hiding because he's right in the corner. And I think, well, that's kind of weird. Didn't really put two and two together too much. And so I go inside and go to bed. And the next morning I get up and go out and start doing my thing out in the backyard and, doing house stuff. And I see this giant piece of poop. I guess what they would call it from an animal is scat. And
that was a very big possum.
Yeah. Well, I know it wasn't the possum, and I know it wasn't our little yippy dog because it was the size of his body. And I went, well, that's unusual. So I run in the house really quick, and I Google mountain lion scat. And the picture that popped up looked exactly like it. So I'm like, So I got out the trail cams and placed them around the yard. And so far, I have caught a rat, a cat, a regular house cat, and a possum on my trail cams. But I don't know if we got one or not. I looked online to see if there was any reports or anything of it. And I did find a report almost to the day of right down the road. There's a street. And 2 years ago to the day, some guy walked out in his backyard and there was a mountain lion back there. His dog had it cornered. So they definitely come around here. So I don't know if it was a mountain lion, but I'm definitely on high alert.
Well, I imagine so, because your goats, your dog, you, Hot Nursey, the kids.
Yeah. That's my biggest concern is Hot Nursey and the kids. But to say the least, I am now wearing my 357 on my side, just in case.
I bet that just pisses Gavin Newsom off.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. But since I'm on my property, I can carry it wherever I want.
There you go. Well, I hope maybe you'll bag a cat.
Maybe. I mean,
can you bag a cat, or are you getting?
Well, yeah, you get in trouble. I looked it up. They are protected species in California, but you can petition for a tag to kill them if they have killed. If they have attacked or killed any of your livestock or pets on your property. And it's like, well, it's kind of...
So it has to kill a kid.
Yeah, so it's like, well, it's kind of a little late then, but I mean, if I were out there and one were to show its face and threaten my family, I'd shoot it and deal with consequences.
Shoot, shovel, and shut up.
Well, that would be my first game. I'd shoot and then listen for cops. But where I live, I mean, from what I can tell so far, nobody would call.
No, probably not. I shot my what do you call that? It's a dresser drawer thing, a little short thing that sits next to your bed.
Oh, your nightstand?
Nightstand. Yeah, I shot the hell out of it. I did. I shot with 357. It was by accident. It was hung up a little bit. I was putting it on. Then anyway, it went off, and nightstand did not make it.
There are no negligent discharges.
No, but of course, I immediately threw it in a drawer and I turned off all the lights. The cop's going to be knocking on the door anytime now because the neighbor hates me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's understandable. It's mutual because I hate her too. And 20 minutes went by and no cop showed up. I'm thinking, I guess I can go to bed now. And I didn't have a note on the door or anything. So, you get one round, nobody's going to pay attention.
Well, all right. You know what? It's funny you say that about cops because one of the things I want to talk about tonight are cops. And I will get to that in just a little bit. But first, I want to read you something from the mayor of L.A. I don't live in L.A., but I live very close, and I kind of listen to what's going on over there. And like I said, this isn't a COVID show, but during this whole COVID time, they've been acting, all the mayors, the governor, everybody around here has been acting like tyrants. Well, let me read something that he said just the other day.
I'd live to hear what Garcetti's got to say.
Yes, and in case you don't know, Eric Garcetti, the mayor, his nickname is Yoga Pants because he wears yoga pants.
On purpose.
Yes, on purpose. All right, in a recent interview that I highlighted on my podcast, not my podcast, this was another person speaking, Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti made perhaps the most incredible statement by any socialist sympathizing politician during the current coronavirus crisis. He actually vaporized the entire Bill of Rights in less than an entire sentence, discussing the severe restrictions he imposed on residents of the city in response to the coronavirus pandemic. Garcetti said, "Let's continue to earn our freedoms." Let me say that one more time. This is the mayor of L.A. Let's continue to earn our freedom.
Okay, so he's saying that if you continue to bend to the will of a tyrant, you're earning your freedoms?
Yes, basically he's saying, okay, I'm taking away your video games, and if you are a good boy or girl, then you can earn them back.
Oh, that explains why the beaches have been selectively shut down and opened.
That's very true, although the beaches really aren't closed. Anybody that lives down there, they're just saying screw you and doing what they want.
So they're rebels.
They are rebels.
Excellent. Hey, what's the chances of them being some Democrat rebels?
There are some Democrats that live down there, so I'm thinking there's probably some because it's a very artsy sort of area, but I don't have any proof of it, but I'm guessing there's some.
Well, good. Maybe they're waking up.
I sure hope so. But for him to say, well, clearly he either doesn't care about the Constitution or he doesn't know about it. And either way, that's sad that somebody in his position would think that either way. So one of the things I wanted to kind of get at today is the government, sometimes police officers, sometimes mayors, governors, that they're sort of, well, they're being tyrants and they're sort of stepping on people's freedoms. Now, before I go into this, I just want to say I am pro-police. I like the police. I think the police are great. But not all police officers are great. Some sort of don't know what's going on. And some of them, it's just because they get that power and they use it and they misuse it. And then others just are unaware. They should be aware, but they're unaware of the Constitution or people's rights or things like that. So I asked...
Allow me to be in defense of the morons.
All right.
I have some law enforcement background, and I do understand how they're trained.
And I am a moron.
And I am a moron.
There you go. All right.
Now, they are not trained in the Constitution.
I can see that.
Okay. The only thing their constitutional classes revolve around the court cases that are the Fifth Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, that kind of stuff. And that's it. They're not given 6 months worth of constitutional law training. Okay, constitutional law to them is this is the court cases that tells you and why you can't do this, why you have to do that, and this and that and the other. And while they're doing that, they're also being told to get around that, you do this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so to them, the Constitution is nothing more than a stumbling block that you have to work around. Okay, now you imagine, okay, I'm 56 years old. Most of the cops nowadays are much younger than that. And so they've been trained by people that are not what you call constitutional lovers. All right, so... And they've been told by their authority, by their academies, this is the way it is. And they don't feel any need to go digging a little bit deeper. You know, they were taught by the school system, by college, and then by academy. So they don't know any better. They think that they know what they know. So that's my defense of the morons.
Okay, a good defense, I guess. But that right there shows me that what I'm going to talk about is even more important. Because have you ever heard of a First Amendment auditor?
No.
Okay, well, First Amendment auditor. Well, here you go.
I'm assuming that the First Amendment auditor goes around to the police departments and governments and makes sure that the entities are protecting the First Amendment.
Sort of. They do, but I mean, these are just regular old citizens that do this. They're not a government agency or anything like that.
No kidding. The government agency's not really.
No, I mean, I suppose there's what do they call that? Internal affairs to look into things like that, but you know.
Yeah, well, they don't really care about that either.
No, I took this from Wikipedia, so It's skewed a little bit, but you'll get the idea. Okay, First Amendment audits are a largely American social movement that usually involves photographing or filming in public space. It is often categorized by its practitioners, known as auditors, as activism or citizen journalism that test constitutional rights, in particular the right to photograph and video record in a public space. Auditors believe that the movement promotes transparency and open government. Now, that's basically what these guys do, is they just take a cell phone, or they sometimes have a nicer camera, and they just walk down the street and they photograph things, and for some reason, people just freak out and call the cops on them. Now, granted, they usually do it in front of, like, the post office or a police station, or a lot of times they find out where some business has a government contract, and they'll do it out in front of their business. But they're on the public sidewalk. They don't go inside the building. They don't harass anybody. They just film. And a lot of times these people come out, usually a security guard or some Karen with a clipboard will come out and be like, excuse me, what are you doing? And then they usually don't say anything. Or they just say, I'm filming. And, well, what are you filming for? Well, just a project. Oh, what kind of project? A project on the First Amendment. And well, you can't do that here. This is private property. And they say, no, I'm on private property or public property, so I can film whatever I can see. Now, the law does state that when you're on public property, you are allowed to film as far as the eye can see. So if they have gates and whatever they have up there to keep you out, that's fine. But if you can see through those gates, your camera can record it. So,
well, that sounds pretty interesting. But what are they recording?
Really nothing. It's
so it doesn't matter what they're recording, just the fact that they're recording is the trigger. It
makes people nervous. Now I understand, because a lot of the times these cops that get called out say, oh, well, in the age of terrorism and these days you can't be too careful, and say things like that. And that's true, but at the same time, you can't trample people's rights in the name of terrorism.
Well, they do it all the time.
No, I know
they've done it since 9/11.
But then and probably before then. But that's why I think what these guys do is so important, because for one, I found this on YouTube. There's tons of videos. In fact, one of my favorite is it's Kern County Auditor, or Casey Auditor. This guy that does it he knows the law, at least the portion of the First Amendment, and he's so funny because he calls these cops out, and there's nothing they can do because they know he knows the law. So what they'll do is a cop will come out and say, okay, let me backtrack a little bit. Sometimes the cops come out and they're really cool, and they just say, hey, so what's going on, guys? What's up? And they'll usually, be courteous to those cops and say, oh, nothing, we're just filming, whatever. But most of the time it escalates into, all right, well, give me your ID. And they know the law, and they say, I don't have to give you my ID. And the cop says, oh, yeah, you have to give me your ID. And the cop says, no, or the guy says, no, I don't. Unless I'm committing a crime, or you reasonably suspect I'm committing a crime, I don't have to give you anything. And the cop will sit there and argue with them and say, no, you just have to because I'm a cop and I'm asking you. And that's not true in most states, because most states are not what they call a show me your papers state. So
they're not Nazis?
Yeah. So typically it'll go back and forth a little bit, and it'll get a little bit heated, and finally the guy will say, am I being detained? And the cop will say no, and then they'll say, okay, well, then I'm leaving, and they'll start walking away, and the cop will jump in front of them and go, oh, well, you can't, because I need your ID. And well, if I'm not being detained, why do I have to show you my ID? And then the cop just keeps saying, well, because I need to know who you are. And he'll say, all right, well, call your supervisor. And a lot of times what happens in these is the supervisor shows up and goes, no, this gentleman is correct. He's not breaking any laws. He doesn't have to show you anything. But just as an example, I pulled a couple clips off of YouTube. So they're about a minute long each. Let me play both of them, and you'll kind of get an idea what I'm talking about.
All right, stand right here for me until we find out who you are.
What am I being detained for, sir?
You're taking pictures of county vehicles and county buildings.
Okay, so is that a crime?
Right now, You need to identify yourself to the police. If we're stopping to talk to you, yes, you need to identify yourself to me.
Is that a crime?
You need to identify yourself to me.
So
That's going to be a crime.
Let me get your ID of where you live at, and then
I'm not going to tell you where I live.
Then why should I tell you where I live?
Because I am stopping to talk to you. I need to see your ID.
So you just stop and ID
You're
people?
taking photos of government buildings and government property.
Okay.
So I need to see your ID.
All right, and that's a crime?
I need to see your ID to figure out who you are.
All right.
And plus, you're covering your face in a public place.
So if I was Muslim and I was wearing a hijab, you would say that to somebody?
No, you're not wearing a hijab. You're wearing a Redskins hat.
Okay, but you said a mask.
You're wearing a face mask.
Yes, and that's similar to a hijab, correct?
Are you saying you're Muslim?
No, I'm not, but I'm just giving you an example, sir. So if I was wearing a hijab and somebody was walking down...
That would be different.
So there you go. The guy comes up, the cop starts talking to him, wants his ID, the guy declines, and basically these cops are trying to bully you into, giving up something that you don't have to give up in this country unless you are you're committing a crime or reasonably suspected that you're committing a crime. Now, I have another one.
Fourth Amendment right.
Well, yeah, and that's what it is. The First and Fourth Amendment is kind of what these guys are protecting. Now,
there's something what you said there that's very important for folks to understand. They start out being your buddy.
A lot of times, yeah. Some of them come straight in being dicks, but a lot of the time, yeah, they try to be your buddy.
Yeah, the smart ones come out, and they're being, for example, the ones where you get pulled over on interstates, for example, Georgia, Florida, not to name states, but, they say, well, do you mind if we look in your car, just for bazookas and nuclear weapons, that kind of stuff, and they go pilfering through your belongings, and they find you have cash. There's $2,000. You're on vacation. And you say, well, yeah, I got cash in there. I'm on vacation. Well, we suspect you could be drug running.
Well, and there you go, and that's their way in. Oh, we suspect. Now they have reasonable suspicion, even though.
And so they take your money and you don't get it back. So when they're your buddy, really get suspicious when they're your buddy. Just want to point that out. A little public service announcement here.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And again, like I said, I am fully for the cops. We need cops. A lot of cops do a great job, but there are things that they could be better trained on, or some of these cops are just being tyrants and trying to intimidate people. Now, I'm going to play a second clip here, and this one's pretty funny because you'll actually hear I think it's the sergeant come in and tell the cop that he's wrong. So listen to this one.
So you have
to require identification under the law, you need to be able to articulate a crime that I'm about to commit or I have committed.
Okay. You're going around, you're videotaping our state police facility for no apparent reason, and if I'm asking you who you are, you have to provide me with identification.
I don't have to,
it's
no.
just like anything else.
No, it's not.
Yes, you do. All I'm doing is asking for a form of identification so we can identify who he is. He's refusing.
Go to your first sergeant, not a problem. Not a problem.
You can videotape as much as he wants. We don't have to get any form of identification.
He can videotape, not a problem.
All right.
Okay.
So you were wrong?
Huh?
You were wrong?
According to my sergeant, yes, I was.
So you learned something today. That's good.
Okay, don't worry about it.
So actually, this is where the cop is berating this guy and telling him, oh, you can't do this, you can't do this. And the sergeant comes up and goes, no, actually, he can.
Well, that kind of reminds me of one time when I wasn't a sovereign citizen, but I was doing deep research into it. And a buddy of mine was a sovereign citizen, and he went to the FBI in a local city here to basically make a complaint against something or other. Anyway, there was an old FBI agent and a young FBI agent together, and my buddy was doing the demurring thing. That's where you don't answer a question directly. You answer a question with a question. Mm. And the young FBI agent says, I will throw you in jail. I have the authority to throw you in jail. And my buddy says, you do? With a smile on his face. And the older FBI agent said, no, you don't have the authority. because it was in city. It wasn't federally. It wasn't properly ceded federal territory. So the FBI didn't have the authority to arrest him.
Yeah, and if you watch
the older guys know.
If you watch these videos, there's a lot of that where they just tell, well, I have the power to arrest. And the guy's like, well, yeah, but only if I do something wrong, and I haven't done anything wrong.
There's a difference between power and authority.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, I applaud these guys. I mean, Okay, if you decide to look this up on YouTube and find some of these auditors and stuff, there are some of these guys that go there just looking for a fight with the cops and try to argue with them. And then there's some of these guys that are doing it for the right reasons, just to make people aware of what's going on. The guys that look for fights, I click those off and go to the next one because I don't want to see those guys because they're just being jerks and yelling, names at the cops, and I don't want to hear that. But
we have a little time here. Do you have any particular channel that you would recommend?
Like I said earlier, Kern County Auditor. That one's a great one. It's this
Current County?
Kern, Kern. Kern. It's a county here in California. It's up north. This guy is a Hispanic guy, and he has a very heavy Hispanic accent, but he's so funny because he'll tell the cops, he's like, "Okay, when your sergeant gets here, I'm going to school you." And then, in fact, there was one that I just watched recently where this cop, and the cop looked like Freddie Mercury. He was wearing the glasses. He had the mustache. He looked just like Freddie Mercury. And he's telling him how, you can't do this, and I can take you in and do this. And so he says, well, all right, get your sergeant here. And when the sergeant comes, he tells him, no, you can't. He has every right to be here doing this, and you need to leave him alone. So he looks over at that guy, the cop, and he says, hey, when you're with your wife tonight, make sure you think about me. And you could just see this cop seething, but you can just tell he's one of those jerk cops that loves to throw around his authority or his perceived power rather than just serving the people. And that's another thing. A lot of the times these guys ask the cops, you swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. Can you repeat it to me? And I as of yet, have not heard one cop repeat it to him.
Yeah, that's just a little phrase for them.
But I mean,
it's like a phrase for the politicians.
Yeah, but and just so people know, if you do watch this and you think, oh wow, that's a great idea, I should go do that. Make sure you know your stuff, because these guys know they may not know every law, but they know enough to keep themselves from going to jail. And even sometimes they do go to jail, but know your stuff before you challenge a cop, because a lot of these cops, you can see it in almost every video. It's almost like they're reading a script. The way they try to circle around and come in behind you verbally to get you to say something. But these guys, they know what they're doing, and they don't answer questions. They don't give their name up. And most of the time they're polite, but they just kind of turn it around on the cops. And I don't think these cops are used to having people do that to them. So it kind of throws them off their game. And it's funny to watch. I've been watching them for like a week straight.
Just understand that as soon as you answer a cop's question, I don't care, hey, how are you doing? I'm fine. Right then, you have just left where you're at and entered into his jurisdiction.
Yep. Any
question you ask, you've gone into his jurisdiction and he has control.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I've known several, air quotations here, sovereign citizens. I've known 2 that were successful at it. I've personally known. I've read about others. There's a city in Ohio, I'm not going to mention its name, where some sovereign citizens, they never violated moral law, God's law, but they would violate some statutes here and there, and they would get tangled up with the city. It came down to where the city's, basically insurance company said, look here, if you screw these guys one more time, we're dropping you. Okay.
Well, and that's just it. And some of these guys actually do get arrested. They end up getting arrested, and they don't fight. They just say, okay, take me in. And they tell them, this is going to cost your city a lot of money, and it does. And like I said, I think this is a good thing that these guys are doing, because they're holding cops accountable, and they are teaching about, anybody that watches the videos learns about the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment, and that's a good thing in my eyes.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Now, what some will do is they'll get arrested for a traffic violation. They'll have somebody else on the outside, a buddy, that will file a writ of habeas corpus, which means you have my ass, now explain why.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll go in front of the judge and say, where's the injured party? Okay, I didn't injure the cop, so he's not the injured party. I didn't injure a law. You can't injure a law. So where's the injured party? And the judge has to say, well, there is no injured party. Well, then I'm free to go. and then they throw a title. It's been a Title A4. Anyway, they throw the paperwork for a lawsuit at the district attorney and say, "See you later."
Mm-hmm.
You know, so yeah, where we're at now is nowhere near where we were supposed to be at. But we allowed them, not the cops. The cops are just the king's servants.
Yeah, they're kind of the middleman.
Right. And most of them don't know what they're doing is wrong. Yeah, so don't hate the cop.
And, you know,
don't throw rocks at the cop.
Another reason I think this is kind of on my mind is because of that cop recently that got fired for talking about enforcing these COVID rules and things like that. And I'm glad that cop spoke up. I'm sorry he got fired, but, you know, that guy was one of the good guys, I think. So
he's getting a job in Texas, isn't he?
I haven't read anything recently, but it's very possible. But there you go. There's my little song and dance for today's show.
Oh, well, how much time we got?
I did kind of go along, so maybe 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay, that's easy for me.